Well, how about them Cowboys? The Cowboys cowboyed once again. And by now, everybody should know what that means. In Stephen A. fashion, they did what you thought they were going to do. And with that being said, I still have pretty good optimism on the Cowboys. Now, what did that mean for the whole season? As if like to the playoffs? I think they have a good enough team to get to the playoffs. But I will say that I think that this game for them showed more for them than it did for the Eagles. Let's just go with the Cowboys stuff. I was like, I think Dak was on point. I think Dak was making throws. Their offense was aggressive, which I feel like had been lacking several years. Like, even though they have been like top in offense for several years and stuff like that, I felt it was more aggression. It was more juice. Granted, week one, but I felt like it was a lot more there. I felt like Dak wasn't doing some scared ass stuff. I was like, had a cousin. I was like, I don't know how they're gonna go, but I felt like a lot of throws he was being aggressive on. Even if a couple of them, cause I felt like he had a chance. I was like, it was where they got roughing the passer on the tight end. I was like, but the play before that, he had his tight end again, and I think he underthrew him. I was like, I think he underthrew him in a way where it's like it didn't get the tight end a chance to get the pass interference for coming back, and it wasn't. It should have been more over because there was nobody there that he could have thrown it over the linebacker that wasn't able to see. Anyway, I was like, even them, they were aggressive throw because after that one, he went straight right back to the middle. I was like, so they was aggressive there. I think you've seen the difference of like it's a totally different offense now that you have Pickens there and Turpin and Tolbert can be the 3 and the 4 instead of having to rely on them to be the 2 and the 3. You know what I'm saying? It pushed that talent to the proper spots. I think their line did fairly well. Granted, no Jalen Carter, so I think that does make a really big difference of how they were able to push push the defense. And I think that says more about the Eagles. But I was like, their line was fair. I was like, did fairly well. I think they did fairly well holding up against the pass rush and stuff like that. Dak did a very good job. He doesn't run like I want him to, or whatever. That's why, like, when they were doing like the read option, I was like, Dak's not taking that thing. Like, if it's not, to me, if it's not like goal line, I'm not trusting. I don't care. I'm not really worried about Dak. But I think there was enough there that their offense, I was like, they had juice in the run game. I was like, Sanders breaking open for that huge run, and I laugh because like I don't know if anybody else thinks about this or thinks like this in my head, but a lot of times when I feel like you have a chance to score, like like Miles Sanders doing that long run and getting this close, I was like, I mean, I know it was close, it was like about like 15 yards, but getting close to the end zone, in my head I was like, they're not going to score. Just because I don't know what it is. It's just something about like like how people do like the football guys and all that other stuff. That I think that's how it is in my head. Where I'm like, oh, you like if you throw a pass and it was like, oh, that would have been a touchdown, you dropped it. I'm like, y'all not scoring. Y'all might keep the drive going, but you're not scoring. For some reason, I just feel like that, and that's how it sort of felt with. But between him and Javonte Williams, I felt like they got a good enough duo back. I still think, I mean, this is going to be what their team is as far as running backs go. But I was like, I think there's enough there for them to get a better run game than what they've been doing. And also on defense, I was like, I thought, to be honest, the defense did a really good job. Because even though Jalen Hurts scored those touchdowns, the reason he scored those touchdowns is because he couldn't pass to anybody. There was nobody to pass to that he really felt comfortable and safe to. So it's like their defense was doing a very good job. I think where I was like, but then that's when you did feel Micah being missing is one, there was no integrity of like pass rush integrity of like basically just like they kept crashing too much to basically with a quarterback like Jalen Hurts because it's like yes I was like he's not necessarily looking to run But the thing is like he knows as soon as you crash in, he's like, I'm just going to go over here and run, and that's what he did. And I was like, so there was nobody there. There was really, I was like, there was no spies. But I feel like when you have Micah Parsons, you don't have to worry about that in the same way because he's going to get so much to the quarterback in some way, and you let either the other dudes collapse and get him, or he's fast enough to get him. Where it's like you don't necessarily need a spy. You don't need the integrity in the same way because he's such a harasser that everybody else is going to be able to eat. When you don't have anybody else that's up to snuff in that way, then I was like, then guess what? That's sort of a problem. I was like, Collins was talking about how he said the Cowboys felt like their depth at end and stuff was going to be their biggest strength. And it's like, yeah, that was when you have someone who's a ex-player on Madden, a AA plus player kind of guy, then yeah, your C's can work really well. But when everybody is a C, Jalen Hurts says, see you later. Dad joke of the day. Anyway, so I was like, but I do think that they'll come along just because I was like, not everybody I think is Jalen Hurts running. Like, there's only, I mean, yes, there's more mobile quarterbacks now, but I was like, nobody that's also like Jalen, and also that has the weapons. Cause I do think that's the thing that everybody with the Eagles is that I'm like, the corners have to stick to those receivers. Dallas Goedert still a good tight end. Saquon Barkley is somewhere yet you need to keep an eye on, which they could not tackle him, and like part of me was like, yo, they was missing some tackles, but it's also Saquon Barkley, but they missing some tackles, but it is Saquon Barkley. So I was like, I think this matchup, I think is a really good matchup to see what the Cowboys got to improve on and do. Yes, you could say that about every game, but I don't think you're not gonna get that in too many other games where you got to worry about every single spot, the line, the running back, the quarterback, the receivers. You're not gonna have to worry about every single threat of that. So I think that's why going forward, I think their pass rush will be a little bit better. It's still going to be something to improve, obviously. I was like, and they did sort of slow down Saquon. Saquon didn't go crazy or nothing like that either. In that type of way, he wasn't putting up video game numbers or nothing. So when you play teams that don't have the same confidence level of them, the Cowboys will be fine. I think it was just really good to see how the offense decided to play and be aggressive, and Dak being aggressive. Because there's a lot of times where it's like Dak could be a really. I was like, the way this looked like when Dak was. I was like, one game, how he was sort of with the MVP, where like got weapons, he got things to do, let him sling it. Especially if you're going to be more pass heavy than run heavy. So that's them on their offense and on their defense. The Eagles, I was like, Jalen Carter got ejected from the game for spitting at Dak Prescott. And, okay, also, one, I was like, Jalen Carter, I think that's some crazy. You spit on the dude. I'm like, anywhere else, that's an ass whooping. So that's why that's crazy to me. Not just getting ejected. How the football players are like, you left your team out there to hang dry. I'm like, he spat on the dude. And I'm glad a couple people said that. I was like, yo, that's wild. Also, why did it take for the whole rain delay for us to see Dak Prescott spitting and them having a confrontation beforehand? Like, why did that take so long to get that footage, that angle and stuff? But I will say that while Dak did spit, like Jalen Carter was backing up, I was like, he spat a bit out there, winked at Jalen Carter, obviously, and Jalen Carter's like, that for me, that while that is crazy for Dak Prescott to also do it, because I was like, that is some kind of, that's kind of weird to be like spit on something and be like, and it's intentional kind of thing. I get trash talking, all other stuff, but spit, like I said, might get your ass beat. That still is different than like if Carter would have spat to the side and then like looked at Dak or something like that. Cool, fair, even Steven. You spit like a loogie? Man, that's crazy. Anyway, enough being said. So that happened. And I do think it changed the rest of the game because, as Collinsworth said, not only had they missed so many things like from different cornerbacks and safeties and linebackers and other defensive and like their line is sort of is going out the way as well. Is that I mean, and that's where it's really the important part. Because I was like, you lost your defensive tackle and you lost your pass rusher, so it's like, and you lost. I was like, and look, I was like Mitchell, Cooper Jean, and stuff like that. I was like, they are good players. They won a Super Bowl with them last year, but that defensive line is what make things go. Carter not being there, I think, what showed like, oh, they don't have really the same thing. Dak was actually holding himself well in the pocket. He was getting away. I was like, he was evading. Yes, I was like veteran quarterback and all this other stuff. And yes, the Cowboys line's a lot better than it was last year, but they couldn't really get the Dak like that. It wasn't until like towards the end of the game when it was already where like you sort of do let the reins off, where you like, I'm coming to get him a lot more, that it started to be a little bit more in his face. But he was still getting passes off, and I was like, to be honest, he was getting passes off in the way that your quarterback should, where like, I'm about to take this licking, but I'm gonna pass to that dude. And CeeDee Lamb was dropping some ball. I was like, I thought I was talking about done with the Cowboy, but for CeeDee to drop that pass, where I was like, where Dak threw that thing out on the line and gave it to him, and he dropped it, that almost could have got intercepted. That I hear what they said, that was a tough pass. The other one where Lamb had to dive out there to catch it. Whatever, man. I was like, it's a hard catch, sure. Hit you in the hand, you could have. I was like, and you called it, you could have. I was like, I understand. I was like, I'm just fat dude sitting on this couch talking about these players, but we're talking about it period versus period. We're not talking about me versus them. You got to make that catch, dude. You top receiver, you make that catch. That's what you do. Like, nah, I was like, you done had a couple drops already in this game. That's what you do. That's what you did. That's that big play catch that you needed. And I was like, y'all the best players on the team now. You make that catch. And he ain't make that catch. Anyway, the Eagles, I was like, we'll see how much happens again of this whole not passing thing, because I was like, Goddard did get a couple of his passes, but none of the other receivers really touched the ball. Now, I know what you're saying. Hey, when you win the game, you win the game. They got Saquon Barkley. They got the tush push. I was like, Jalen runs in for 2 touchdowns. Hooray. But at the same time, at some point, we're going to see this. I was like, winning does cure all, but let's not act like at that point last year that it was the same thing. And some of y'all are the people that's like, a ring changes. However, you can see what the hell is going on sometime, where like a ring magically changed everything you thought was different. All of a sudden, things are beautiful, but that shit's gonna get tired and old at some point of the same thing of like, man, I'm just running wind sprints this whole game. That's all I'm saying. At some point, I was like, that's gonna be a hit. I think the Eagles. I think their defense will. I was like, be fine or whatever. This is defense. I mean, not a defense, a division opponent. So there's always that extra juice to it. So I think they'll be fine. I just don't think they're as Teflon as they was last year. I think they're a little bit more vulnerable. Or whatever. I do think that the whole passing thing is still going to ring its head. It's still going to be a minute to check with this new offensive coordinator, as it is every year with Jalen Hurts. With Jalen Hurts, hey, I was like, he put him on the back today, but also, can you say, was there passes to be made with Jalen Hurts? There's always the give or take with him. But overall, I was like, I think both teams are going to, after this one game, at least it's going to be fine. I was like, the defending champions, I think they're still going to stay where they're at. I was like, will they be top as they was last year? Maybe. I was like, probably, just because I was like, I don't see too many other teams that have stepped up high enough that maybe next time to catch them. At least regular season wide, playoffs is a different story. But I don't think it's as crippling for Dallas as it will be. I was like, but the Super Bowl dream that if you had any for the Cowboys is not there. I was like, but I still think they still got a shot at the playoffs. Anyway, football is back, and they did come out with a good game that I feel like a lot of people thought it could get. I think if you ask a lot of people, they would be like Eagles by a lot, but that was a close game throughout the whole time, and the Cowboys had their chances, and they fumbled literally and figuratively on a couple plays that could have changed the game. Anyway, Getting ready for this weekend. Football's back. You can smell it in the air, no matter the delay. Anyway, see y'all for Sunday, maybe. Yeah.